Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started now. My name is Christine Chow. I'm the Executive Director of the Stevens Initiative. Thank you so much for joining us today as we launch a new year of our work. I often find times when we are starting a new year, it's a time for reflection. It reignites past commitments, and it sparks excitement for new ventures. Today, we have an exciting opportunity that really captures those ideas: reflection, commitment, and embracing of the future. We are here to celebrate alumni of virtual exchange programs. The Stevens Initiative is an international leader in virtual exchange. We're dedicated to making virtual exchange experiences possible for every young person around the world. Virtual exchange is a necessity. It broadens accessibility to global experiences. It contributes to a broader global understanding. When young people are empowered through virtual exchange, the world becomes a more prosperous and a more peaceful place. It connects communities separated by distance and other factors, perhaps ideological, cultural, even socioeconomic differences. And we're proud that we will have reached nearly 75,000 young people by this summer. Some of these people, young people, are here today with us. We are joined by 11 alumni across 5 different states and 6 different countries, and collectively they participated in 8 different virtual exchange programs. They joined our inaugural 2022 Stevens Initiative Alumni Fellowship, and over the year they've been participating in learnings and professional development opportunities, and it's all culminating in today's event. I've really enjoyed getting to know some of these alumni, and I know after today's event, you're going to feel exactly the same way too. Too often, we hear from professionals and educators about the types of skills and competencies that young people need to succeed in the 21st century. But we really rarely have the opportunity to hear from young people about their experience, why virtual exchange is important, and why it should be an opportunity that's accessible to all young people everywhere. Today, I'm really excited to hear from them, hear about the friendships they formed, the networks that they've built, and how these programs have prepared them for their lives and for their careers. I want to thank my team for the work that they do to make virtual exchange possible for tens and thousands of young people, and for all of their effort in today's event. Importantly, I want to acknowledge our partners, some of which are here today: Dr. Ann Stevens, sister to Ambassador Stevens, whom you heard from lately. I also want to thank the Bezos Family Foundation, the governments of Morocco and the UAE, who have been supporting our work as well. I'm proud that the Stevens Initiative calls the Aspen Institute home. And I really appreciate the support of our president and CEO, Dan Porterfield, who will share remarks later on today as well. And finally, I want to recognize our longstanding partnership with the U.S. Department of State, from which many of our valued colleagues are here today. One of which is Pedro Jose Martin, who is a Foreign Service officer and is the division chief of the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, Office of Citizen Exchanges, Global Leaders Division. And I'm very happy to welcome Mr. Martin to the podium to share remarks.
Thank you very much for that warm introduction, Christine, and thanks to you and your team at the Stevens Initiative for organizing this week's event, to Dan Porterfield and our colleagues at the Aspen Institute for their continued support of our endeavors, and to Dr. Stevens and the Stevens family for their enduring advocacy of Ambassador Stevens' legacy. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my great pleasure to be here with you today and with these incredible alumni fellows of the J. Christopher Stevens Virtual Exchange Initiative. I look forward to hearing more from you all later in this program. As someone who has served a great portion of my career focused on the Middle East and the Northern African region, this exchange and the legacy of Ambassador Stevens holds a profound significance in my professional and personal development. I was serving in Baghdad, Iraq in September of 2012 at the time of his passing, and 3 years later, found myself in the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs the first time during the inception of the initiative itself. I was honored then, as I am now, to continue to promote Ambassador Stevens' legacy through my career and through the important work of the Stevens Initiative. I understand that international exchange experiences Ambassador Stevens had as a young man helped to shape the kind of person and diplomat that he was known to be. Gracious, curious about other cultures, and always willing to engage in open and respectful dialogue with anyone he met. The J. Christopher Stevens Virtual Exchange Initiative provides international engagement opportunities for students across the United States and the Middle East and Northern African region to engage in those same kinds of formative, open discussions with one another and to build mutual understanding with their peers. ECA is proud to support such an innovative and visionary program. The initiative reminds us daily of the value of virtual programming for its ability to reach participants who otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity for exchange, and its flexibility to meet young people where they are, online, and definitely not where I am. Since 2015, the J. Christopher Stevens Virtual Exchange Initiative has served over 60,000 participants in 18 MENA countries and the Palestinian territories, and in 48 US states, as well as Washington, DC, Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, and one tribal community. The inaugural cohort of the Stevens Initiative Alumni Fellowship represents another example of the ambassador's legacy at work, building bridges and supporting mutual understanding between young people by demonstrating that the continued growth and reach of the program over the last 8 years. We applaud these alumni and their continuous commitment over the last year to developing themselves as global leaders, intercultural communicators, and cross-cultural collaborators. I understand that fellows have been tackling issues and working collaboratively on projects surrounding HIV/AIDS awareness, climate action, and developing exchange programs around career skills, global competencies, and cross-cultural dialogues. While these projects focus primarily on communities in the United States and in the MENA region, we know these issues go well beyond borders, and their ideas reflect solutions that can be applied across the globe. Fellows, as this program concludes, know that you are part of a larger network of over 1 million alumni of Department of State programs, the International Exchange Alumni Community. This global network serves as a valuable resource in support of your efforts to bring positive change to your communities and for your own professional development. We at ECA are proud of the work you've done as part of this fellowship, and we look forward to seeing the impact that you will continue to have as young global leaders. Thank you. Now, I'll turn the mic over to Kyle Castle.
Thank you very much. I think good afternoon, everybody. We're excited to get to, I think, the main section of our program. Like Christine mentioned, we're very excited about today's event, which is a culmination of a year-long learning program for these 11 young people who are with us today. This fellowship program was a unique opportunity for a select few alumni of our virtual exchange programs. And our goal was to help these alumni develop as leaders, professionals, and also virtual exchange advocates. We're looking forward to 2 different panels this afternoon. And so I'll invite the fellows on the first panel to come to the stage. And so that is Manatullah Mustafa, Adam Odemore, and Lily Payton. So if you guys want to come up, you can have a seat. I'm also going to welcome the first panel's moderator, Lindsay Powers. So Lindsay is a senior program officer of education practice at IREX and has been a great partner of ours at the initiative for a number of years, implementing the Global Solutions Sustainability virtual exchange programs. And so today, Lindsay is going to moderate a discussion of the experience and impact of virtual exchange. And so I'll turn it over to Lindsay, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the panel.
Great.
Thank you so much. All right, now I think we're working. Thank you, Kyle. As Kyle mentioned, my name is Lindsay Powers, and it's great to be here with you today. I am joined by a fantastic panel of alum who participated in the Alumni Fellowship program, and we are excited to hear from them on their experience. If you'd like to know more about them, you can read their bio in the information that's at your table. And as we get started on this panel, when we think about virtual exchange, there's lots of different types of exchange programs. There's different ways that they can be implemented. There's different structures for virtual exchange. But the one thing that's similar about all virtual exchange is the opportunity that it affords to young people to be able to learn about themselves and to be able to learn more about the world around them. And so we are going to hear from our alum sharing their experience in virtual exchange and why it's such a meaningful experience for young people to participate and have in their life. So with that, we're going to get started with our first question. The first question is, when we think about virtual exchange, there's a lot of people, and maybe many in the room, who don't know what virtual exchange is, do not know what it looks like for someone to participate in a virtual exchange program. So if you can share with us, what was it like participating in your virtual exchange program? And what was it like engaging with other participants online? And Lily, why don't we start with you?
Great. Yeah. And hi, everyone. I'm Lily Payton. I participated in the African Middle East Leadership Project's Global Allyship Program in the summer of 2020. So a little bit after the pandemic just started. And the goal of this program really was to connect the cohort of American as well as Middle Eastern, North African students and young leaders from across the world in these virtual sessions. So what we did is, for about 6 weeks, we had weekly sessions on Fridays over Zoom. And during these sessions, they invited activists and educators in really pressing issues. So that could be entrepreneurship, youth leadership, nonviolent resistance, things like that. So they'd present a lecture for about an hour, and then we'd have a discussion in a discussion group with other fellows. So what we would do is, in that discussion group, think about what the lecturer actually had told us, and then see how we saw it from our own perspective, our own community. And then what we found was, we found a lot of similarities across the borders in our discussions. And then in the asynchronous time in between each weekly meeting, we had a WhatsApp group, and we discussed things that really reminded us of the lectures in our daily life as we're reading the news, walking down the street. And so we had the synchronous and this asynchronous opportunities to connect with each other across the borders.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing, Lily. Adam, how about you?
Oh, well, hello, everyone. I'm Adam Omidour here from Algiers, Algeria. I participated back in 2022 in the Experiment Digital program. The program was like 8-week long program where we had weekly sessions to talk about topics like civic engagement and leadership in the countries that the participants were from, which were the USA and the MENA region, so Algeria, Iraq, Yemen. The main goal of the program was to connect and bring together those young high schoolers in those sessions and in that atmosphere, and give them deep knowledge and understanding about those main topics in those different countries, so they can maybe learn about the issues that they were facing in their daily lives as young high schoolers who dream of becoming maybe global leaders, and find solution all together in those weekly sessions that were facilitated by one of the staffs through Zoom. Also, between those weekly sessions, we were using an online platform that allows both the participants and the staff to create an atmosphere of exchange and activity that were mainly either to follow up of the previous sessions, or do other independent activities about culture. For example, talk about monuments in your cities, or what you do in your daily life in your cities. What's a hobby like? What's a day that you celebrate in your city? Just to learn more about the culture and understand it in a deeper way. So yeah.
Great, thank you, Adam. Mena?
Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Mena Talal Mustafa. I'm from Egypt, and my virtual exchange was How to Succeed as an Innovator, implemented by Citizen Diplomacy International. And the main goal of the exchange was to talk about tech innovators who are able to talk about bias and stereotype. So we met over 4 weeks, once a week, over Zoom, and our sessions were divided between sessions about cross-cultural communication from the Dialogue Institute in Philadelphia, and the other part of the sessions were like talks from different guest speakers who are like big names in entrepreneurship and the creative fields. And then we got to talk about like the art of inventing, how to problem solve, how to think about problems, and how to like think about products in a culturally sensitive way. Like one of the things that we talked about, like the softwares for facial recognition, and how we need to think about different cultures and different places when we're talking about the software that talks about the facial recognition. So that was a big part of my virtual exchange. And I think that I kept thinking about even after my virtual exchange, because like I never thought that in the planning of a product, we need to account for different cultures. So after that, everything that I see, I start thinking about like, is it accounting for different cultures? Is it inclusive enough or not? And that's like the big word that I took from my virtual exchange.
Yeah, great. And it sounds like there's a lot of similarities with your projects or programs that you participated in, where it was for several weeks long and you're connecting on a weekly basis via Zoom or some other platform and having those live discussions on relevant topics for youth today, and then being able to connect outside of those weekly meetings and be able to remain connected. So that is really great. We'd love to hear a little bit more about the uniqueness of your program. So if you could share what made your virtual exchange program unique, and what was unique in the sense that you were able to do something that you would not have been able to do, say, if it were an in-person exchange. Adam, why don't we start with you this time?
I think it's a great question, because I had participated in in-person program before participating in virtual program. And the uniqueness of a virtual exchange program is that the ability to actually bring together people from different countries, because the in-person program I did was mainly for Algerians. It is good to learn about Algeria and what's happening internally, but to get maybe a broader view about what's happening around the world, what are people your age and as passionate as you about maybe the different or the same things are feeling like. So getting to know them was pretty unique, and it's something that I didn't find in an in-person experience. It was also unique because of, as I mentioned before, the amount of knowledge and understanding and clarity about what's happening in other countries and in other cultures that you might not know much. You can't actually see, we don't usually see movies from Yemen and Iraq, for example, contrarily to the USA. So it's kind of cultures that are maybe not clear, especially if you're a high school student, maybe you don't even know about those countries. So that was very unique. Another good thing and another unique thing that was in my experience was that it was 100% online, and it was kind of a new atmosphere of work, I think, for me and for everyone during that time, because we're like shifting from the offline to the online era because of the pandemic. And it was unique, it was new, and it was also beneficial because, as I told you afterward, everything shifted, studies shifted to online, work shifted to online meetings and etc. And those skills I learned during that experience on how to collaborate and exchange online with others, especially others from different cultures, was really beneficial. And I still, I'm thankful for that to this day.
Great, fantastic. Mena, how about you?
Same as Adam, my virtual exchange was in 2020, so it was in the pandemic. So there was no other way for me to communicate with people from a different culture than me except virtually. So that was a big part of the virtual exchange, and also because I'm a medical student and have a really, really busy schedule. So I wouldn't have been able to like commit to a 4-week program if it was an in-person program. Even now, I'm missing like school to attend the summit. I'm very excited about it, but yeah, I'm missing school for it. So I guess like a big part of a virtual exchange is it's accessible for everyone. So for me as a medical student, I wouldn't have the same opportunity all the time if it was always in person. So for me to be able to have the opportunity to talk to people from different cultures and connect with them on different topics, and I'm really passionate about it, I wouldn't have been able to do it without having a virtual platform for it. So that's why I'm very, very thankful for having the opportunity to attend a virtual exchange.
We're glad that you're here as well. Thank you, Mena. Lily.
Yeah, I think echoing what Adam said, I also have participated in the in-person and the virtual environment for exchanges. And I think one thing that's really unique about the virtual exchange model is that people either sign up or apply. like they really want to be there. They want to learn from your perspective. They want to hear about other cultures. They want to hear where you're from, and really engage in that cross-cultural communication compared to an in-person exchange when you go elsewhere. I think another thing is because you start the relationship online, you're messaging on Zoom or on WhatsApp, you can continue that relationship post-program. So it doesn't mean that because Adam and I are finishing the fellowship this week, that doesn't mean we can't talk on WhatsApp, on Zoom going forward and continue to grow and evolve that relationship. Then I think lastly, at least for my university, there wasn't really an opportunity to go to the MENA region in person. It didn't really exist. There weren't study abroad programs that could actually go there. So to have this opportunity actually made this region accessible to me.
Fantastic. Yeah. And I hear a theme of access, whether that is, Mena, you have a really busy life, but yet you want to have that cross-cultural experience, and virtual exchange allows you to be able to have that experience and fit it into what's going on in your day-to-day life. And, you know, whether the institution doesn't have the opportunity to travel to the MENA region, and yet you can still have this experience. So, and especially Adam, as you mentioned with the pandemic, yes, we all went virtual, and you were able still to have this meaningful experience. So really great to hear that. Now, the next question is really on the value of virtual exchange. So we heard about your experience, the type of program you were in, and why it made it unique experience. But if you could also share with us, in your opinion, as an alum, why is virtual exchange a meaningful experience that young people should have today? Mena, why don't we start with you this time?
Okay, so for me, I guess like virtual exchange gave me the tools to be a good member of my community. Like I'm gonna give you like a realistic example. Like in my school, we have a lot of international students, but the student list, like putting all the Egyptian students together and all the international students together, so we don't have an opportunity to like deal with each other or talk to each other. So after my virtual exchange, because like I had a lot of information about how to hold a dialogue with someone who's different than me, what is the part of cross-cultural communication that I need to take care of when I'm communicating with someone from a different culture. So we started organizing the cultural diversity events at my school, like events for us as students to get together from different cultures and from different like countries and talk about our cultural backgrounds. And I guess like this is a really important thing, especially like in medicine and medical school, because as future doctors, we deal with a lot of patients from a lot of different backgrounds. And if you don't have that openness and the open mindset to like understand the background of our patients, we wouldn't give them like the care that they deserve. So I guess having all the information and all the tools that I got from my virtual exchange and being able to give that to my community and trying to make my education more culturally inclusive and like better myself as future doctor, that's a big part of why virtual exchange is important for all young people.
Yeah, thanks, Mena. Adam, we'll get back to you.
Yeah, I think a virtual exchange is an experience is meaningful because of this day and age, the era of information. There's lots of information about lots of places and lots of countries, and it's very likely to find yourself learning a lot and not actually figuring what's right and what's true and what's correct and what's distorted and what's biased, etc. So it's very hard, especially for young people, young high schoolers like me. When I did my exchange, it's very hard to have that ability to know what's actually genuine and what's as I told you, fake. But an experience like this will really help you see the truth from the people that are that you hear about, but you don't get to meet or exchange with or collaborate with. So it's a very great opportunity and very essential opportunity, I think, right now at this time to have such an experience, to learn exactly directly from those people, to overcome those barriers that you have, to break down those stereotypes that you just received and you don't know from where exactly, to have that open-mindedness that will allow you to become a better individual, an impact-making person in the communities you are involved with, or your society, or maybe just the couple guys that are around you. You just become a better individual with a better vision about well, everything that you can maybe get to learn about in those experiences.
Amazing. Lily, how about you?
Yeah, I really like what you said about breaking down stereotypes, because at least for me, coming from the American perspective, I mainly hear about the MENA region in like the news or politics. That's a very certain view of that region. So I think these exchanges are really important for not only breaking down those stereotypes and having a more open mind, But from those news articles, you just hear about the government. You don't hear about the people on the ground, the people living their daily lives, like the experiences they have, the types of people they are. So these really bring those countries and those people to life. And you actually can be like, oh, he's from Algeria, she's from Egypt, and actually know what they're like and find those common similarities across different cultures, which I think is something that's been really enriching for my life. And I think even going a step further than that, more than only just being open-minded, it's helped me kind of attack challenges in my own life professionally. It's like I have this one very American mindset on how to do something, but then when talking with other people, they have a new perspective on how I can address something, how I can maybe fix it and be a bit more human and think about things from a really different perspective. So I know that's helped me professionally, personally, just having to get out of my own mind and step into someone else's shoes. It's helped really open the world up.
I hear a theme as you are all sharing this, just the value of virtual exchange that allows you to really develop a new worldview of people from a different place in a different country. And I know it's often that we have our own single narrative, right? And it's maybe based on the media, or it's based on just what we know and what we've heard of a place. And being able to have the virtual exchange experience allows you to develop that new narrative of others and break down stereotypes and really be able to develop that. So that's amazing. I think we'll make it to our last question. And we'd love to know, what are 2 things that you've learned from your virtual exchange experience? And just going to open it up to whoever would like to start us off.
I personally think that that my first my virtual experience in the Experiment Digital Bank in 2020 was like my first introduction to cross-cultural communication. It was the first time I found myself in a Zoom meeting with people from different countries. So that was pretty, I think, life-changing, because I'm here right now after a year of learning about this cross-cultural communication. So I think this was something very important that I took from that experience. Learning that there is possibilities to learn about other people and to be able to exchange with them and talk with them and understand them without, in a very safe and just safe atmosphere of work or of learning or whatever. So I think that's the first thing that I really learned from that. The second thing, and it's something I think obvious and I talked about, which is how much I learned about those culture and how deep the understanding I had. Now, when someone tells me I'm from Egypt or from Iraq or from Palestine, I really know what it's like to live there, and I know that culture, how it is. And this is very important and interesting, because when you know actually how life looks like in those countries, you start to question yourself about the information that you were getting, and you start to kind of figuring out the difference and the truth and what's maybe a little bit blurry and maybe biased. So I think these are 2 things that are very important, and important for me as a young professional and as a student, and important for everyone who wants to become maybe a leader or a global leader or just an impact-making person.
Very well said. Anyone else like to share?
Yeah, I guess I can share. I have a very specific skill in mind. I guess I'm now more able to hold a conversation with people who are different than me. Like when I'm talking to someone who has a very, very different views and opinions from me, I don't get offended anymore. Like I think, okay, where is this person coming from? And like ask more questions in order to understand their perspective. And it's kind of nice, like observing myself doing that, because I don't think that's like the default way of thinking. Like I think normally I pick out the inconsistencies and try to think like, how is that person different than me? Now I think more like, that person probably is coming from the same place as I am, but like we're having different opinions. So I need to listen more and understand where that person is coming from. So I guess I'm manifesting the listen to understand, not listen to respond thing. So yeah, that's like the biggest skill I observed myself doing after my virtual exchange.
Great. Lily.
Yeah, and then I just wanted to add on to that. I like what you say about listening to actually understand. I feel like through these, you really see yourself becoming a more curious person. And it's not it's not in the regions that you've already been interested in. It's not in the topics you're already interested in. It's in things you never thought you'd be interested in, like learning about medical school for me, or reading like a Persian poetry book. It's things that you never thought would be something that you're going to do and you're going to be interested in. Then beyond that, taking that curiosity and applying it to professional opportunities. I know I now work with international cities in my job, and I'm not sure if that would have been my path had I not done a virtual exchange. So it really opens up your worldview, as you've been saying. to all the different possibilities that these virtual exchange opportunities offer us, not only while you're doing them, but for years afterwards as well.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience in virtual exchange with us. It was really great to hear that and to see the value that comes from virtual exchange, the skills that you've developed that you're going to take with you in your life. And so, yeah, thank you so much for sharing.
Great. Thanks you all. And thanks, Lindsay, for facilitating such a great discussion. I think I'll invite the next panelists to come up and introduce them while they're getting situated. So we have Abdul Khalik Al-Junidi and Whitney Brooks, and they are going to participate in our second panel today, which is moderated by our colleague Khaloud Khalifa. Khaloud is a personal development coach and a lecturer at the University of Applied Science in Vienna, and previously at the American University in Cairo. In addition to this, she's been a longtime fellow, senior facilitator, and coach at Solia. She has partnered with the initiative to create the content for the Stevens Initiative Alumni Fellowship and facilitates training sessions focused on different topics, including virtual exchange and cross-cultural communication. So in that first panel, we had the opportunity to hear what is a virtual exchange like? What does it look like? What impact does it have? What do people learn? What do they take away? So that's a really good foundation for what we're going to hear from next, which is, so after the virtual exchange program, what about another learning opportunity? So what about the fellowship? So we're going to dig into exactly what happened over the last year. So I'm excited to turn it over to Khaloud and these alumni, and we'll continue.
All right, thank you very much. I think everyone can hear me. It's wonderful to be here. So I'm joined by Whitney and Abdul Khalik. Lindsay had mentioned that their bios are in the agenda if you want to read more. So this panel, we are focusing more on this year's fellowship, 2022. And perhaps a question to start us off is, how would you describe your experience in this fellowship?
Yes, I can start you off. So hello, everyone. My name is Whitney Brooks. I am from Detroit, Michigan, and I participated in the Business and Culture program through the William Davidson Institute at the University of Michigan. And so for this fellowship, we met once a month for the entire year, talking about topics in leadership, empathy, discussing how those integrate within our own culture, and then working on a community integration project to bring our community into those kind of topics and themes and introduce them.
Hi everyone, I'm Abdul Khalik Al-Junidi. I'm from Palestine. Currently, I work as software engineer at Amazon UK. I participated in the Next Generation Code Network program 2020. It was under World Learning Organization. As Whitney said, like throughout the year, we had the opportunity to have like asynchronous activities and synchronous meeting about different topics like empathy, emotional intelligence, and adaptive leadership skills. And then like at the end of the year, like at the last 2 months of the year, we were able to actually implement those skills that we were learning throughout the year in the final project. And we were able also to see like the cross-cultural communication concept within our participants of the project that we had, that we will talk about a bit later. So it was kind of like learning and then literally implementing what we learned throughout the year in the final episode of the fellowship.
And when you look back on your fellowship, is there a moment about friendship or skill building that was a formative part of your fellowship experience that you might want to share?
Yeah, like for me, there's like one session about emotional intelligence in the fellowship. And they talk about like empathy, and they had like this video describing what the actual meaning of empathy is. And like before that, I had no idea. Like I had like this kind of like lower level understanding of empathy, and I did not really understand how important it is in a cross-cultural communication context. Because like when you had people from different culture and different backgrounds, you really need to have this empathy understanding in the background of when you are speaking with them, and then you're also communicating and making decisions within that context. So for me, like the emotional intelligence session helped me really in personal and career life as well, because like previously when I was in a cross-cultural communication context, I did not really use empathy as much, but like when I did understand it and then finally do it in the final project, we were able to like merge within those concepts and like the activities that we were doing in the project. So it was like a huge like moment for me, that video and the understanding of the empathy meaning.
For me, I would say during probably the second or third meeting we had, we talked about leadership, and we had a little breakout group talking about different images and how leadership looks, whether that be standing in front of a group and directing them from the front, supporting people from the back. And so we had smaller like breakout groups on Zoom, and we talked about what that meant individually for us and which ones we resonate with the most. And so after that, we came back together and we're like, okay, everyone, it's time to share. And no one spoke. And so Hassan was like, all right, I have something to say, but I'm really shy, but I think this is what is important about leadership. And I was like, oh my gosh, I am also shy. And then Ariel was like, I'm shy too. And then we all realized that even though we all came together and we're leaders in our own right, it doesn't always look like the traditional form of leadership. Your first thought of how you would, envision that to play out.
Thank you. Part of the fellowship was that you had to come up with community service projects. And I know that both of you were in the same team. Can you perhaps give us an overview of what that project was and what inspired you to create this project? Also, what impact do you hope that it will have?
Yes.
Perhaps, Whitney, if you would like to start us off.
Yes. So our project was called International Creatives Kickstart. It was a 4-week program. We met once a week with participants from Algeria, Palestine, and the United States. And we also had speakers from all 3 countries, ranging from a product designer at Disney Streaming, a director in advertising in Algeria, and they kind of talked about their journey into their careers and the soft skills that they had to develop, right, to get to that point. And all of the participants, right, are early in their own careers, and all of this information is imperative to, a successful start in those careers. And so a lot of our discussion was about how they want to develop these soft skills, but then also how their cultures play into these soft skills.
Yeah, so like the inspiration for the like project that we had is like there was a program in Palestine, Gaza Strip, called Gaza Sky Geeks. They were extremely successful in like bringing fresh graduates from Gaza universities who are really good at what they are doing in the hard skills part, but they are facing like challenges trying to be good at soft and communication skills and trying to apply to jobs or even like join the freelance industry worldwide. And they were really successful doing that because from the cohort that they had, it was bringing people from design industry and software development and as well translation. And those people like were one of the top-rated people in the freelance like Upwork website, which like I think it's such a huge success, and they were able to continue their cohort till now. Like maybe they had like 7 or 8 cohort so far. So we really wanted to replicate the experience with the graduates from Algeria and Palestine and the US, because we kind of understood we had like the same challenge. People are really good at what they are doing, but they have problem marketing themselves and go through the hiring process, or even like if they want to do their own job or their own like startup or something, or if they want to join the freelance industry, they will face these challenges. So we kind of want to really focus on the soft and communication skills. And as like Whitney said, we brought speakers from those 2 industries, the design industry and the technical industry, software development industry, who were able to convey the students or the participants that we had on the same skills that are really needed in the global stage. And we even saw like the progress of the participants throughout the 4-week program that we had, because at the beginning they were really like shy and not so communicative with other students or with the speakers themselves, but like by the end of the project they were like really communicative with each other and also with the speakers. And like we were like really proud, me, Adam, and Whitney, because we're in the same project. Yeah, it was really good.
And when you said that you noticed that there was a change from the moment like you started the fellowship and the project, and how that changed over the course of 4 weeks. With that in mind, because you're virtual exchange alumni, engaging your communities is really important. So based on the skills that you have developed in this fellowship, how did you implement that when you engaged your communities and during your project?
I really think that when it comes to engaging our communities, you can't solve a problem with the mindset that created it. And I think working cross-culturally really gives you that different perspective. And like when you meet people, the first thing you want to do is find something that you agree with and commonalities and that sort of thing. And coming at it from like, I would love to find out what we have that we do differently, or that we learn differently, or that we see differently, and how I can take that away and either use that now or have it be a strength later on. And I think since we have all already had an experience, and this is our at least second, maybe third, kind of cross-cultural communication touch point, that we get comfortable in this, and we don't really think about how our communities, right, they don't really have that experience to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and having that engagement through this program was really important to bring that into our own communities.
Yeah, like for my case, since I know that the people that we brought in are probably from universities where there's not a lot of international students, they don't have this like cross-cultural communication context so far in their studies, and we did really like know that they will probably head up to an industry where like cross-cultural communication is they can't like avoid it, because like especially in the tech industry and even the design industry, like the entire product industry is full of companies where there is a huge diversity within teams. So I really know we really wanted to make sure that those participants will have the some kind of like mini experience of cross-cultural communication with people from different culture, and also being able to understand values and ideas from people from different countries, because we had participants from the US and Algeria and Palestine as well, and we also had the speakers from US, Algeria, and Palestine. So we kind of having this cross-cultural communication happening between the participants and with the speakers as well. As I said, I think we were able to succeed in what we are trying to do, like by the end of the program that we had.
Great, thank you. Now looking ahead, and because this fellowship, we're wrapping this fellowship up, how do you anticipate to use the experience that you've gained moving forward, both professionally and personally?
Yes. For me, I ideally want to use it in as many settings as possible, specifically in the design realm, which is what I just graduated, focusing in industrial design. I think a lot of what we talk about in design thinking is that as soon as you assemble the team, you go straight into understanding the user and what their actions are and what they do. And I think beginning with the team, you can work through a lot of problems that you don't really understand how to solve, but it's one of those how you guys are coming together, and not anything having to do with the product and the team that you're working with instead. And I think it was funny during the project, we were kind of talking about how often we should meet and when are the best times to meet, because we're all super busy and we had to figure that out as we went along. And one of the times we were talking, it was like 2 or 3 meetings in, I was like, oh yeah, I think Sunday might work for me some days, but not Saturdays. And I was like, oh, for me, Sundays are work days. And I was like, work days? Like, I hadn't even considered that. Exactly. And I think working cross-culturally and understanding that like Western culture can sometimes come off as like the leading culture, because that's what we understand, and that is, connected, internationally when we work internationally, and understanding that that's not the case, and working with other cultures from the beginning and working on those assumptions is very important.
Yeah, like for me, career-wise, I mean, like this kind of the fellowship and also the virtual exchange give me like a heads up to what I'm going to, because like the industry that I am in is you can't like go to the team where you have people from the same country or from the same city. So for example, like my team at Amazon is consisted like people from different countries. Like there's no 2 people sharing the same country or the same city. So that was like kind of a really well needed heads up for me to what I'm coming to. And even like personally, I feel that some of the sessions about adaptive leadership skills, and also like the emotional intelligence and the empathy session were so important for my personal life as well. I was able like to use these kind of lessons and ideas, and like as I did also change my understanding about a lot of topics and a lot of things, I was able to use those learning in my personal life. And it was like I'm really sure that those kind of discussion that we had within like the synchronous meeting before the project, and even like the preparation for the project itself, I feel that those kind of discussion and those kind of settings of debates will be able to, I will face so much of them in the future. So I kind of like have an idea of how can I deal with people from different cultures, and how can I make sure that the cross-cultural communication is actually productive and effective in that matter.
And Abdel Khalik, to address something that you'd mentioned just now about there are no two people in your team that come from the same country.
Mm-hmm.
So part of this fellowship, it was very important for us to include a group of diverse voices and backgrounds and perspectives. So when you look back at that, how did that shape your experience? And do you perhaps have like examples that you might want to include?
Yeah, for sure. Like for me, like diversity, like sometimes, especially like in the industry, as I said, it sounds like a cliche thing. We want to diversify the team or something. But like when I did come to the project or like to the fellowship, I don't believe that I will have the same experience if it was people from only my country or my city. Because like in my university in Palestine, as I said, we had no international students. So like I did not have this kind of exposure to people from different cultures. But like when in the fellowship itself, we had like people from the US and people from different countries in MENA. Like even the Arab students, I did also learn different things and about different cultures. So I don't think we were able to achieve the things that we had if we did not have like the diversity that we had. And also when it comes to the final project, because we were also focusing on bringing people from different places, I don't think we were able to do that without having the actual organizers of the final project being from different countries. And it was like a really good experience to know people from different backgrounds. And even when we came here, we were able like to also like to be, we felt like we saw more commonalities between each of ourselves, like more than differences. And that's kind of like wrap up the fellowship experience at the end.
I think within our group, it was very important to directly impacting our curriculum of what we wanted to talk to the participants about when it came to our soft skills. Because you can go online and look up like what schools have what curriculums in other countries, but you won't really know what the students understand right outside of that and what their takeaways are and what really happens in classrooms and education and all that. So I think having a student from each of these countries and what our goals are, and having similar career paths in graphic design, software, industrial design, and like developing that together was really important to knowing that we created something was holistic and benefited us both within our own countries and then working cross-culturally.
Yeah.
And oh, sorry, did you want to?
Yeah, I just want to say, like, because she also mentioned the industry part as well, because we also, like, most of us in the fellowship were like professionals. Like we had like maybe Adam is the only student in the fellowship, admin as well. So like we also like had, I think we did understand the impact that we will have from the fellowship, because we are actually like doing the cross-cultural communication or day-to-day work. So it was so important that that was the case for us.
Wonderful. And as a final question, in any virtual exchange, and including this fellowship, we try to create an environment where we can learn and grow together. Now that we're wrapping this fellowship up, in your opinion, what needs to be in place for this to successfully happen?
I think for me, it began with our applications and how the applications were given to us. There was a big emphasis on commitment and being there at every single meeting, and knowing that it was over the course of the year. It's like, that's a big thing to say, that I will clear out every, day of once a month for this whole year. And also knowing that every time you come to a meeting, you have to bring your full self, because a lot of the material that we talked about relied on our own cultural experiences. So going into that with that sort of mindset of that, like, I can't sit at the back of the class, like this is about me and for me at the same time. And I think when we first got together in our first meeting, like everyone was super excited and genuinely interested in getting to know each other. And that like kept the momentum for the entire fellowship. And now we're definitely going to stay in contact. Yeah. We've been talking the whole time, like we've known each other, but this is like the first time we've met, which is just so exciting.
Yeah, I think like the a major like success part of the fellowship was the organization of it. Like because we have people from different time zone, and like at the first meeting, at first week, it was like really hard for us to actually know that this time is good for everyone throughout the year, and it was so I think perfectly done, like each and every session throughout the months of last year, in order for everyone to be able to engage and be themselves throughout the synchronous and also asynchronous activities. And I think like without that organization, we will not be able to do all of what we did. And also like the organization and facilitation for this event. It took so much time for the facilitator. They did an amazing job. I think like it's a huge part for each program, like even the fellowship next year and the next cohort. I think like the facilitation will play a huge part of make it a success and also make it like a memorable experience for everyone, because it was like really hard to understand how this will look like at the beginning, but like it's now the result is so great and perfect. And also one thing that was so important, I think, that because for each month we had only one meeting per month, but you also added like this asynchronous activity before this one meeting. So when we came to this one meeting, like 2 hours, we would be totally prepared because of the asynchronous activities. And this was like a really great thing that you were able to do, and we were able to make advantage of, because like most of the time we will have like a breakout rooms for like 10 or like 15 minutes, and because we are like have an idea of what we want to talk about in those breakout rooms, we will be able to convey our ideas fully. We will also have some time to understand other ideas, because like if we did not have the time to listen to everyone, it will be like just like everyone just saying what they know and not listening to anyone else. But because we had this like kind of asynchronous structure and then a synchronous meeting, we were able to make use of the time effectively. And I think it was like truly a perfect facilitation throughout from the start till to this event as well.
Thank you very, very much. And thank you for sharing with everyone here. We'll move on to the Q&A, audience's Q&A.
Thank you so much, panelists. Yeah, you're right. Stay there. We'll invite the other 3 alumni who we heard from earlier back up. And while we're getting situated, everyone in the room and listening online might have been feeling like me during this panel. Like I have lots of questions that I want to ask them, but I get to spend time with them all week, and you all don't. And so we want to give you all the opportunity to ask some questions to our virtual exchange alumni, either about their virtual exchanges, their fellowship experience, what it's like to live as a virtual exchange alum, or something that you heard from today. So a reminder to everybody joining us, zooming in online, you can submit questions through the Zoom platform, and we can ask those out loud. And also anybody in the room you can raise your hand, we'll run a mic over to you. We always forget when we have people zooming in that it is just wait to speak into the mic so people joining us online can hear us. I always forget that, so I want to remind everybody here. And so I guess we'll open the floor if you want to like raise your hand or submit a question online. Yeah, sure. We can maybe we'll go here, and then I see a hand back in the back. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. I'm Peter Kovac from the Department of State, and with a long background of intercultural experience. I have a kind of a link question. Every one of you has obviously experienced a live exchange to some extent. If you were designing a new program going forward in the post-COVID age, how would you design a hybrid program to maximize the difference in experiences between what you can do on Zoom, that I think, Whitney, you really articulated well, and what you could gain from in person-to-person interaction? Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know. I almost want to call on somebody, but then I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So yeah, I think the question is, if you were going to design an exchange program that is hybrid, maybe that has some in-person components and virtual components, maybe like the fellowship, right? Like we could call that a hybrid exchange. What do you think is important to prioritize for each kind of part of that exchange? Does anybody have strong feelings that want to start? Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, I think the fellowship here is a very good example of this idea of designing a hybrid type of virtual program. I think in this day and age, it is a requirement to have such a program, to have something, especially if you're trying to maybe have people that are young professionals who are studying, or undergraduate or graduate students. They won't probably always be available to travel to another country, maybe in for a long time, or to a different to a far maybe destination. So I think it is important, that it is essential to prioritize the virtual experience, because of its accessibility and its affordability, and that it seems like it works for everyone. Now the tools that are available online makes it so much easier to maybe plan time for calls, or try to find platforms where you can exchange, collaborate, work on projects together. So I think the virtual is the virtual side is a revolution in this exchange field.
Yeah, well said. Does anybody else want to add on to that, or?
I can add on to that. I also agree that this format and the way we've gone about it here is very beneficial, because I think when it comes to like a traditional exchange program, right, you go into that culture and you're immersed in like a university abroad, but because of that, you're not always focused on, the surroundings, immediate surroundings. You're here, so you must be understanding it. And so you have that observation aspect, but that deep dive into what certain things mean and how they come about was something that we got from the virtual aspect, because we can't look outside, and explaining that and describing that and then coming together and experiencing that together was super beneficial.
Anybody else? We can go to another question, but I think those are two really great answers.
I can jump in just really quickly. I think one thing that'd be really cool in the virtual environment. So as a reminder, this was like a 12-month fellowship, all virtually, and then the culmination's a week long in person. And that's been great. And I think you've already made this update for the next fellowship, but I think what would be really interesting is not only going to Washington, D.C. one place, but also going then to like one of your cultures. Like if I actually like could go to Egypt and actually see where you live, like you told me about it. I know we're friends, but actually like, how does that work in your daily life? Like, what does your life look like? I can show you here in Washington, D.C., but having that like exchange as well of location could be cool as well.
Yeah, she gave away our big secret for the next I'm joking, it's not a secret. But yeah, I think that those reciprocal exchanges, right? They were like, and I've worked in exchange for a while, and I think we very rarely see the opportunity for a young person in the United States to go visit a community that their partner lives in another country, and vice versa. That partner didn't come to the United States, and so we're excited about that next year, and hopefully you'll join us next year to hear how that goes. But yeah, I think we're really excited about that too. Maybe another question back here, and then maybe we'll have a question online.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Amanda Nepomuceno. I currently support a virtual exchange program at IREX called the World Smart STEM Challenge. And one of the favorite parts of my job is hearing beautiful stories, such as what all of you shared today. And my question can be answered by any one of you. And I know like some of you did touch a bit about this, but what are some skills that you learned during your virtual exchange that you found most useful in your current position? Or how did virtual exchange prepare you specifically for your roles?
I can add on that, because like for me, it did hugely affect my career. The fellowship and also the virtual exchange that I did before the fellowship in 2020, because like the project that we did work, and then it had like some technical aspects, and also in my as a software engineer, like that technical aspect, and at the same time doing the cross-cultural exchange, it was also really beneficial to my career. So if I want to say in specific skills, I mean like emotional intelligence is so important, like because sometimes when we think about like STEM majors, we only focus on the hard skills, but we also really need to focus on the emotional, like on the soft and communication skills, and the emotional intelligence come increasingly maybe one of the most important skills in that types, especially like after the pandemic. People are more understanding of like how to communicate with people from different cultures and different places, and also that include empathy and like what lies under that as well. And if you want to talk about soft skills, I mean like team building and like project planning, will happen across like each virtual exchange, because like I really realized like most of the virtual exchanges that we had with the group had a final project at the end. So like having a final project is so important in terms of like project planning and project implementation as well, which is a really important skill in any industry, especially the STEM industry as well. So yeah.
It's a really good start. And we're fortunate that so many different, I think, professions and experiences are represented on the stage. I wonder if anybody else has a different experience.
I can add on that. I don't want to repeat myself. I don't want to seem redundant, but the same thing about like being a medical student and thinking about like communication skills with patients. Like being a doctor and like having all the medical information is not enough to give someone the care that they deserve. So thinking about like culture and how it affects like even in our conversations when we're thinking about how culture affects our thinking and our behaviors and how we may have like unconscious biases that we don't know about that we need to focus on in order to like connect with the patient that we have. That's a really important thing that I learned through my virtual exchange. And even I noticed myself in like the clinical exam when we're like dealing directly with patients. I get like excited about what made you in the position you are. Like I'm not excited because like they're sick people. Like I'm not excited about that. But I'm more of like I want to understand your story. I'm not like tell me where your pain is in order like to go to the other patient. So that big part of like how my culture and the cultures of people around me affects like my communication skill with that patient. That's a big thing that came out from my virtual exchange.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So for me, I work as a brand designer, and I think the essence of building a great brand is your ability to understand others and expect their needs and try to communicate with them clearly through maybe the language is different. Maybe you'll use visuals, you'll use copywriting, but it's different. But the better you're able to understand others and try to understand their cultures, how they see things, their backgrounds, the better you're going to build that brand and actually sell what you need to sell. So virtual exchange, I think, in my opinion, as a brand designer, everything you learn in an experience like this, in a global experience, where its core expected outcome is cross-cultural communication, is going to help you to be a great brand designer. Yeah.
Great. I don't have anything else to say. I know I sometimes join these events virtually, and I want to make sure sometimes I want my question asked. So I want to turn it over to our audience online that submitted a question.
Yeah, we have an excellent question from one of our audience members that many of us at the Stevens Initiative get a lot for virtual exchange implementers, which is, what were some of the ice-breaking activities that allowed you all to quickly get a chance to know each other?
Ooh, yeah, this is great. Either from the fellowship or from, I think, from your virtual exchange. What do you think?
I think
it's like 1 year ago. Literally.
I think the most exciting icebreakers were the ones that we talked about. There was some of those icebreakers where we talked about our daily lives and hobbies and interests. I think this is a very good thing to use as something to bond with. I think I remember in the fellowship we did a icebreaker. I think it was in a breakout room. There was Rowan who was facilitating, and we got to talk about football and sports. There was people from Egypt, Algeria, and the United States, and we just learned how much, I think, because sports is like an interest that is common and you can find in different people. And I think icebreakers around interest, just to take a lot of time talking. I think creating icebreakers around hobbies and interests, such as sports, music, and movies, maybe, is really a good way to strengthen relationships between those people that you want to make them maybe collaborate and exchange in the future.
Yeah, one of the icebreakers that I like the most was one like we shared our name and our country and our favorite way to eat a potato, and it's like so nice to be able to talk about food in a culture perspective. So this is like one of the most like I'm not funny, but like interesting icebreakers that I've gone through.
Yeah, it's good then.
I feel like there were two that really stuck out to me. One from my previous experience and the one from this fellowship. I think one that I really enjoyed was creating a Spotify playlist. Early on, that was something that I hadn't considered, and sharing music and music, something that's like very personal to me, and you know how you feel, it expresses how you feel and that sort of thing. So I feel like that was like our first kind of connection point. And then in the previous fellowship, virtual exchange, we talked about assumptions and cultural stereotypes. And each country, like group of students from a particular country, went through and listed all the stereotypes that we heard about ourselves and about other countries. And we went through them. And everyone had a really good time, because I feel like that's something that we're all afraid of, making these assumptions, and it kind of stops you from engaging sometimes and getting all of those out the way and saying, oh, that's very not true because that's connected to this, or this is kind of true because of this, and like laughing about it and getting over that hurdle really connected us early on.
Yeah, I also remember like one of the activities was when we did the adaptive leadership skills session, we had like an asynchronous activity for each one of us to put like a name of a leader and their story. And I was really excited to see what people put in, because like none of them put like a world-known leader. Like each one of the participants put like a locally famous leader, but like we don't know their story. And that was really exciting, because sometimes we can understand like what leadership look like in a global context, but like not in a local, really effective in a local level. And that was one of the activities that I think did gave each one of us an idea of how like leadership will be in the context of the other person culture, like, or maybe not only on a local level, but also like on a national level for their countries, and like how leadership affected like maybe the course of history for that nation. It was a good activity, I think.
Yeah, sure. And I'll just add on really quickly on what you said. It's less of an icebreaker, it's more of a format for an icebreaker that I liked. So we had 1.5-hour calls, which is a lot of time, but also goes by really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's also having those asynchronous icebreakers. So I can go and look at what you're putting on the sheet and read about that and read about your culture and everything you're saying. That may take 30, 40 minutes to put together, but we can do that in the async to get to know each other better than only using those live sessions that we had.
Yeah. This is what I'm talking about when I said we want them to become virtual exchange advocates, like talking about both asynchronous and synchronous activities. I'm just like, wow. So yeah, I think, yeah, I see a question in the back. Yeah.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Miguel Barreto from Creative Connections. So I've been able to hear you guys saying about the importance of virtual exchanges and how it has affected you positively in your lives. I also remember more than a decade ago when President Obama took office, he set up our goal to connect at least 5% of all classrooms in the United States with countries and classes abroad. Not sure how successful that was. I can tell you based on my own experience that we're still far from that goal. So I would like to ask you, if you have the chance to travel back in time and go back to your elementary or middle school, and if you have the chance to ask or to think about what would you like that school to have done for you to prepare you for this journey where you are today? What could have been done better for you?
I think that's a really good question.
Yeah.
I'm glad that he's asking it of you, because I think you're closer to your school years than I am, and so that's great. I was like, I don't know, but yeah, what does anybody have a suggestion of like what that younger version of you would have liked to prepare you for the exchange or for or for the fellowship?
I have a pretty short answer. I'm from Algeria, and what you read about other countries and other people is geography, and that's it. You learn about geography, you learn about mountains, you learn about seas, rivers, but you don't actually learn about the people and the culture. And I think just learning about the culture in an unbiased way, which is very hard. I think that's a very good step to prepare the ground for someone who will eventually want to become maybe a global leader or an impact-making element in their society.
Yeah, I think like from my case, I think English language is so important, because like if you don't have this language, you will find really challenges communicating with people from different countries. And like thankfully in Palestine we have like good focus on English, like from first class. But I think like for other countries who don't focus on English, they can maybe think of investing more on that because like although it's like maybe people don't think of the effect of learning English so much since young age, but like it's so important when it comes to communicating with people from different cultures and different countries, because eventually it is like the most used language in the world, and like people, especially young people, need to have like some time focusing on English throughout their school years.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add on. So in high school, I did an exchange program in France, which is great. It was lovely. It's great to go to France. They came to my house. It was awesome. But that's also a country I hear a lot about all the time. Kind of growing up, you learn a lot about it through history classes. Just anecdotally, you hear about Paris a ton. I think just really honing in on some of the cultures that aren't spoken about, that still have a really big presence in the world, I think would have been cooler, perhaps, and actually learn about like the MENA region, which is like very important. I think would have been something that really differentiated them, rather than just going to like the traditional like London and Paris.
Yeah.
I think for me, one big thing was when it came to hearing about international news in like elementary, middle school, and having the opportunity to talk about how we feel about something versus like, here's how you should feel. Because I remember like we would have the morning news every day, and there was a lot of like ongoing wars during that time. They would be like, this is what's happening and this is how to feel about it. Like, this is where we stand, but not about how they came about and what, the way they want to end it and all that sort of thing. And I think having the opportunity to like learn more about the whole issue versus just like where we are, because they were like, that's like a lot for you to understand, but if we're already going to be in this realm, I think it's time to begin that process. So yeah.
I guess for me, I don't know if this is like realistic enough, but one thing that I really think about a lot, like if we have like a pool of international like teachers and international professionals who could like connect with us like in different countries about different topics. Like if we are having a history class and we talk about India, it would be nice to hear about the Indian culture from an actual Indian, not from like an Egyptian talking about the Indian culture. So if we like think about our curriculums and how we can talk about different cultures and encourage people from these different cultures to like talk to us about their own culture, that would be like that would make a difference for me to understand like different cultures from around the world. Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have another question over here.
This is Halis from the Iraqi embassy. While I'm listening to you, and then I appreciate the program and the culture exchange and all the experience that all of you went through the program. I have a question about, I'm sure that you guys have a lot of, maybe limitations or challenges. As English language was one of them, as you started initially, is this a program help you to improve, to develop your English language? Is the English language was one of the obstacles that, limit you from the participation, the understanding, the shyness of just to, raise a question, talk about your stereotype, your, stories, life experience and all of that? And I have another question for the program. Sorry, I'm sorry. So how the way that you guys choose your participant, are you considering the English language, as I think the main language of the program is English? Are you guys choose your participant who speak English or has, at least the basic English language to communicate, to be able to communicate? Thank you very much.
It's a really good question, and I think we should turn it over to you all to talk about, like maybe your experience at your virtual exchange and in the fellowship, and what role English language proficiency had there, and then we can talk about like maybe what like English language as like access, right, an access barrier, access challenge sometimes to participating in a program. That's a really good thought. We should get into that too.
Okay, you can go. I'm sorry.
I just want to say, like, because I did start with that subject. I don't think in the fellowship we face this kind of language struggle, but like in the virtual exchange that I did before the fellowship, I did realize that like a lot of people do have this barrier, like the English language barrier, and they did prefer like texting in English than speaking in English. And when it comes to speaking in English, this is where the challenge is, for especially for students who are still like in their early years of university. But I think like most of universities in the Middle East do teach in English, which help, like removing this obstacle for communications. But like people in the early years of university, I think they still will face this kind of speaking in English and maybe listening to people in English. But I think as they go through their university, most of the time this barrier just disappear because of the study language is English. That's what I see in my university, for example. But yeah, I think they did face the speaking side of the communication, like not the texting.
That's a really good point, Abdelkhalik, that I wanted to emphasize for everybody is like the unique power of virtual exchange, maybe to be able to use asynchronous communication. So for an English language learner, for someone to be able to type, for someone to be able to like think about what they want to say, not need to say it out loud in the moment in the second language, that's a really unique value proposition, right?
Yeah.
I think that's really insightful. Anybody else?
Yeah, when we were submitting our application for the fellowship, we had to submit a video of us speaking in English. Like, I don't remember the question, but basically why we wanted to be a part of the fellowship, and we submitted that video in English. And I would say like I can speak English, but at the first like few meetings of the fellowship, I would think in Arabic, and I wanted to translate what I was thinking in English, so that took time. And I was like kind of scared at the first few meetings, like, what if I think something I can't really express it? But the good thing about like a virtual exchange, and I think Lily talked about that, like we're all here to learn, we're all really, really passionate people, and we committed to a virtual setting and to learn about each other. So even if I said like something they're really wrong, or like my sentence is not like well structured, the facilitators and the fellows, like we're all open enough to put more effort into understanding what I was saying. So I felt like there is a safe space to share whatever my English proficiency level is. So through the meetings, and now I guess like I can speak even if I'm messed up. I know that people are putting more effort into understanding what I was saying. So I guess I feel like there's a safe space for even someone with a low proficiency English to share and speak and have the openness for people to understand him or her. Yeah.
I think just shortly, I think a minimum of English is required because you'll apply in English. The activities are in English. The staff will talk to you in English. I think English, but in this day and age, English is like a key skill before everything. I think you can't just move to learn about cross-cultural or something like that, and you have maybe not a great, or let's just say good English proficiency. So I think English is a good step to start with. I think now with the internet and everything, there's plenty of resources to get the essential amount of language that you need to develop and start putting yourself in such programs and experiences.
Thank you for those insightful questions or responses to that great question. I think we have one last question, and we want to bring it in from our virtual audience, and so I'll pass it back to Gabby.
Yeah, I think that this is a great question to do as our wrap up. So perhaps panelists, this can be a rapid fire where you answer in maybe 10 seconds or less. But what is the most memorable moment during your fellowship, perhaps in one word or less? Maybe not less than 1 word.
Or less.
One sentence.
One character. To say one word, like THE, and then.
Great.
Yeah. I think what's most memorable is the day I arrived, and it felt like I met people that I know for ages.
Yeah, I think for me, I want to say that when we see the impact of the final project in the participants, it was like a really huge effect on us because we really understood what we did throughout the year at that final session with the project. Yeah.
It's so hard to express ourselves in one sentence. We need to think about it.
I think for me, the most memorable moment was walking into breakfast yesterday and seeing everyone together, and they're just like, "It's Whitney." Yeah.
And I can say similar to what you said is just that sense of relief, excitement, and also enthusiasm to continue doing this at the culmination of the final project. Like we all came together and just breathed out and also just like celebrated each other together.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's just me. Okay, so I guess my most memorable moment, I have a lot of memorable moments, but I guess in the airport, we're standing on the long customs line, and I've never met any fellows before that point, and then I found Abdul Khalik like saying, "Hi, Minna," and I was like wearing my mask, and he've never seen me in real life before, so like, how did you get to know me? so that was like the first interaction was one of the fellows like in real life, so I guess yeah, this is one of my memorable moments.
I mean, that was great. Thank you all so much for taking the time and like giving these insightful answers. So thank you. I'll welcome our Executive Director, Christine Shaw, back up.
Thank you again to our panelists. I'm now going to turn to closing remarks. I'd like to introduce the Aspen Institute's President and CEO, Dan Porterfield, a distinguished educator. Dan served as president of Franklin and Marshall College and as senior vice president for strategic development at Georgetown University. We're so grateful for Dan's support of our work and to have him here with us today. Dan.
Thank you, Christine, for your that introduction and for your leadership. And it's really awesome to be here. I enjoyed being able to pop in and out and hear a number of our fellows speaking about their learning experiences. And it's just so inspiring. And all of you are a part of this growing network that's making such experiences and relationships possible. And it really is the future of education, and probably the future of the planet too. So you're definitely on the leading edge. And it reminds me a little bit, I was feeling like extra inspired here, just hearing you all speak, that one of this country's greatest leaders, Dr. King, always reminded us that we don't live in isolation, that we live in an inescapable network of mutuality, as he put it so well, a single garment of destiny. And the lesson he took from that statement, as he said in his final Sunday sermon, was that I can never be all that I am supposed to be unless you can be all that you are supposed to be. And you can never be all that you're supposed to be unless I am all that I am supposed to be. And I really think that is one of the guiding spirits of this work, a global sensibility expressed that way by that thinker, but really by educators and thinkers and people in every country, in every community, in every culture, this yearning for connectivity, to come together, and in the magic of coming together, for the parties to discover something about each other, themselves, and the world we live in that they never could have found but through that encounter. And the quality of the program we offer is critical for that. It matters that we really care, that these programs are thoughtfully designed, well delivered, accessible to the many and not the few, that we address some of the kinds of questions still to be worked out, like how do we ensure access to technology so that people can take part in the programs, institutions can take part? How do we think about the role of the English language here and expand access to more, not be English dominated? How do we think together about the dynamics of identity that are happening both in an individual classroom or school or country or community, which is itself a journey for all the students, and then the dialogue that happens across supposed borders, supposed boundaries, oceans are real, oceans, to make something more. And that question about that thinking about identities in dialogue and in development, because learning is about developing the self and developing the community, the question of how we learn, it's going to require our best thinking, continued engagement. The tech challenges are significant and we're addressing them. The human potential, but with that, the human challenges we have to attend to really well. And I know that that's what this group is all about. And with Christine in particular, with her team, which is cutting edge and collaborative and multicultural and committed. And you're doing an amazing work, Christine. And Christine's work is, in a sense, almost like a microcosm of the whole Aspen Institute, which is a large nonprofit organization working in all sorts of places and ways and communities, a number of other international programs, including fellowship programs in the Middle East and North Africa, and economic development programs very much across the Middle East and North Africa. But what you're doing, Christine, among other things, is setting an example for all that quality matters, intentionality and thoughtfulness matters, and then let's try to go on the journey to scale, which is not easy. The journey to scale is unique to every situation, every nonprofit, every business, every venture, but that journey to scale is something that gives us the potential to grow impact, to grow participation, to grow community, and to realize, again, this vision that we are in the inescapable network of mutuality. So let's make it mutuality for the greater and common good. And delivering a great program is a lot of work, and then scaling a great program is like a whole second job. And many of us, I think, are in different ways are doing important work, and we're always thinking, should we extend it, and if so, how? And so, as a community of supporters, thinkers, learners, and students, fellows, you're both doing it, but also seeking to understand what could it look like to grow it and why grow it. I really want to encourage you to keep thinking about that combination of quality, access, and growth, because that's where we have a chance to do still more. Something like 75,000 students will have been in this work, I think, over from 17 different countries, plus the US, almost every state. That's great. And keep the quality, but let's be evangelists, let's be supporters for this notion that the world needs our young people, our educators in dialogue, our institutions in dialogue, and we're the ones that have a vision and the know-how to keep that going. And it really does matter that the students who benefit, the fellows in this case, are able to speak about your experience and also shape the experience we're providing so that it can always be in a sort of a ethos of continuous improvement, and that we adapt as we expand. Every organization, every good service, every program has to be able to adapt in a changing world. And obviously you're going to be adapting your whole lives in order to keep making the kinds of impacts that you have already made in your young lives. And that's what we have to be about too. So I'm just really, really incredibly impressed and incredibly inspired by this group and what it takes to do this. And maybe the changes will be in AI that influence where this goes. Maybe the changes will be in translation services. Maybe the changes will be in ways we combine in-person work with sort of, I'll call it hybridity, to the extent that's helpful. Maybe the changes will be changes in culture, where cultures evolve and adapt in response to being in contact with each other. They get breakthrough, and then we all emerge. Maybe the changes will be the metaverse, and that someday we'll be talking about virtual exchange, feeling like we're actually able to touch each other almost. Well, whatever that is, this idea though you're on is the idea, one of the global ideas for the century that we're in, and the one that will continue to, I hope, not just be in, but to shape. So for that, a big thanks to all of you, and I especially would like to call out and thank the Department of State's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs, whose support has been absolutely indispensable to the virtual exchange field, and to supporting our Alumni Fellowship. The Bezos Family Foundation is one of our greatest champions, and I'm not sure if anybody from the foundation is here today, but they are here in spirit, and the foundation has, I think, set a very important standard for a nonprofit of being willing to partner with a government agency in order to support Christine and the Dream Team to be able to partner with all of you. And so they're big friends of the values that bring us all together today. And then I think we're joined today by representatives from the United Arab Emirates and maybe from the Kingdom of Morocco. So if partners from those places in the world are here. Special thanks to you for being partners and for traveling, and of course all of you for traveling, and seeing each other as like beings that exist in materiality in the world, actual beings. Is probably a pretty good experience. I picked that up in some of your comments. So we've got great partners, and let's keep it going, build both the excellence, the access, and then the strategies for scaling. I think one of the things that makes this especially special today, in addition to having our alums here and having all of your supporters here, is that we are joined by one of the guiding lights of this program, Dr. Ann Stevens, whose brother is, his tragic death is sort of like flowers and plants that grow on a rocky surface. Something good came out of it somehow, and keeps coming out of it. Probably very much in the spirit of what Ambassador Stevens would have wanted to see happen for the world. Although I don't know, never met him, but I suspect he'd be a little embarrassed at his own name being associated with so much good, because I understood he was a very humble human being. I'm excited to have Dr. Ann Stevens come forward. I have to admit, I don't know which of you is Dr. Ann Stevens, but I was thinking, so could I say a word about you as you come up, Ann? And thank you so much. You learn all kinds of tricks when you're in public speaking, and one is who's nodding when you speak. So, Ann, you have been an incredible partner to our team and to everybody in this room, and we thank you. A pediatrician, a scientist, she is really dedicated to data-driven approaches to improving the health and welfare of children and families. She serves as Senior Director in Immunology Research and Development at Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies of Johnson & Johnson. She also serves as the Affiliate Clinical Professor in the Division of Rheumatology at the University of Washington, Department of Pediatrics, where the Bezos family is often involved in lots of ways. Intercultural understanding and relationship building are essential to your work as it was to your brother. A champion. We're so grateful to have you here today, Ann. Thank you very much.
Wow, my heart is just swelling with gratitude for all of you. I prepared some remarks, but gosh, it's going to be hard to even overcome the emotion. I'm just really touched, and I know that Chris would be beaming humbly. He was kind of known for his optimism, enthusiasm, and his wide-eyed awe of the world. And you're absolutely right. He would be going, Annie, what are you doing? But I think he'd also be really proud of this work and how it's developed. He used this optimism and his enthusiasm to build bridges between the people of the US and the people of the MENA region. And he did this through deep understanding, which he achieved through scholarly work, through deep reading of history and art and culture, but especially through speaking to people and one-on-one conversations and listening. I think I heard a couple of times today, listening to understand. That was so beautifully put by the fellows today. So this Stevens Initiative, it was built to continue this work, to really be his legacy. And I'm just so impressed about how you all embody his legacy now. It's everything we hoped for. So I just wanted to say a bit about how did this blonde Californian get into this business of building bridges with the Middle East and North Africa. And it came from, of course, his own personal educational exchange experiences, starting in high school when he studied in Spain for a summer. And then he kind of got the bug in college, went to Italy to study, and then signed up for the Peace Corps in Morocco. And it was his time in Morocco that really opened his eyes to the entrancing riches of the Middle East, the culture, the people, the language. And he, after he passed away, we went through his papers and we found a letter that he had written during his time in Morocco. And he was very clear. I didn't realize how clear he was, even in his early 20s, about how he wanted the people, the American people, to understand the people of North Africa and the Middle East. And he didn't think that we really got it, and he did. And so that's when he dedicated his life to helping us to better understand and appreciate the culture. And the reason why he felt that was so important was because when he was immersed in the culture, he was in awe. I mean, and so I just wanted to talk a minute about awe. I've been thinking about awe a lot, AWE, not aha, but awe. It touches on kind of what Mina was talking about in medicine. I'm a pediatrician. I treat patients from the state of Washington. We have Microsoft families. We also cover Alaska, Idaho, Wyoming. So I treat patients from northern Alaska, from the villages. And it's so important for us to understand and hear the stories of the patients. And there's actually a new field called narrative medicine, where the whole purpose is stories, not only the patient's stories, which are so essential to understand, but the physician's stories, which help us to connect to our own work, our own missions and values. And I've been participating in a narrative medicine project that one of our fellows is doing. And we meet once a month virtually for 1 hour. Sound familiar? And one of the sessions that we did was focused on awe. And we were asked to think about a time in our lives when we felt awe and how did that feel, and talk about how did it feel. And I think that's how Chris felt. And I'm getting a little bit of sense that the participants in these exchanges, and especially in this fellowship, have maybe felt, you all have felt a bit of awe, moments of awe in what you're learning about the world, what you're learning about yourselves. So there's like this whole field of awe right now, and apparently there are all these benefits in that if we look for awe in our lives, then we have more happiness, emotional health, and generosity, humiliated, critical thinking come out of this. There's like huge benefits to focusing on this sense of awe. And maybe it just occurred to me like yesterday that maybe this is what was driving Chris and bringing joy to this work, that practically it's super important and it's good for everybody's careers and it's good for world peace, but personally it's amazing. So we started the Stevens Initiative in order to develop these enable longitudinal, in-depth relationships, and I'm really getting the sense that that's happening here. And to your point, we need to expand the field. We want to build the field. This is an initiative that was meant initially to reach 1 million students, and we have 75,000 that we have amazingly reached, and that's awesome. And that's just what we can put our fingers on. And the science and our research is really showing us that actually our impact is much greater than that. We don't know how to put a number on it specifically, but as we grow the field, then there are unseen members of the world who are participating in these kinds of exchanges that just we can't even count. So the achievements, I just want to congratulate and thank this room full of people on overcoming barriers of language, time zones, getting into curricula, no small achievements, expanding from college or overage to high school and maybe into middle school. I'm a pediatrician, the younger the better. There are many challenges there, but we're doing it. And then the thousands and thousands of students. So how do we catalyze this through research? And this is a tough area of research. How do you quantitate? How do you measure the impact of a program? How do we, design a clinical trial where we go once a month for 12 months versus once a day for 12 days? And which one's better? And what is better? So this group is really forging the way, and it's only through the research and publishing the research and communicating with the rest of the world that all of the organizations that are engaged and have been committed for decades to this field can benefit and work together. It was developed initially, the concept was a public-private partnership, and it really is that. And I'm so appreciative of that. So I add my double thanks to Department of State and US government for being huge sponsors. The Kingdom of Morocco and UAE were in from the beginning, Bezos Family Foundation, of course. And then the seed funding for us to even bring in the right people to think about this before it became the Stevens Initiative. Seed funding came from donations from families and friends, from the government of Libya, from an Italian region of Lazio that said, whatever you're doing, we're in. And just countless countries and individuals who contributed and allowed us to. MacArthur Foundation was another big funder from the very beginning that allows us to start this. So from a seed, something really big has grown, and it's so wonderful. Of course, to the Stevens Initiative Aspen staff, you guys have been phenomenal, very expert, very committed, hardworking, and I'm so appreciative of how they communicate and with me, with you, with everybody. And then the leadership of Aspen, we couldn't do it without this critical piece of constant support. So as alumni, you all are holding hands with us now, building on our momentum. And I am appreciative that you as role models, as advocates now, will be helping us to expand this dramatically to other regions, to other countries within the MENA region, to first 1 million students and young people, and then beyond. I love this. I didn't realize there was a 5% goal in this country. So that's about 1 million, I think, 1 million students in this country. And that doesn't even, let's multiply that by all the countries in the world. We want to be in every school. Every student should have an opportunity to have an exchange experience like this with someone from a very different culture. And like my brother, you are all ambassadors from your countries, your families, your cultures, and now ambassadors of the Stevens Initiative. And so thank you for the work that you've done, for the work that you're going to do. And I hope you will be experiencing many, many incidences of awe as you develop your work. So thank you. I reluctantly allow Christine to end this session. I wish we could talk all afternoon.
I want to thank you, Anne, too, for publicly stating the 1 million participants that we are going to be reaching publicly for the first time. We've been talking about that a lot internally, but we've now said it out loud. But I'm also in awe. We're all so very excited and definitely believe in that vision. And we've been working strong and hard to make that happen in honor of your brother. So thank you for that belief in us. I just want to thank Dan and Anne again for your closing remarks. Of course, to our alumni, they're spread out to this room, to the moderators, to all of those of you who are joining us online. Thank you so much. We're grateful that you're all here with us today. I've been told by our social media communications folks that I have to plug this for everybody, which is, please keep in touch with us by following us on social media at Stevens Init on Twitter and Stevens Initiative on Facebook. All of you that are here and joining us virtually and in person, you've been added to our outreach list, so you'll receive a lot of amazing updates from us. Please don't unsubscribe. These are great updates that you need to keep track of as we start to reach that 1 million goal. And I think that's it, basically. So everyone, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining us, and we'll stay connected.